everyone, and welcome to another episode of Personal Evolution Unlimited podcast. I am Tanya St. Lawson and I'm your host, and I have got a wonderful guest here today. We have already talked a little bit before and decided we have to really start recording, but otherwise we will just keep going and all the juicy stuff will not be recorded. So I would like to welcome here BOHDANA KABÁTOVA, who is from Czech Republic, and we both have our mother tongue Czech, but we will be speaking for our English-speaking audience, for our international audience, in English, and each of us will have different accents, so it's going to be interesting. Welcome, BOHDANA, and thank you for coming here today and for agreeing to this interview in English, because we have already done one in Czech. And BOHDANA, as I said in my previous episode, that is in Czech language, is someone whom I cannot put any labels on, or say she's this, and that, because she's much more. And so I'm always thinking how to introduce her in a different way and in a proper way. And then I came up with only one thing. BOHDANA is someone who fearlessly walks her purpose and vision. She's on vision quest of life, and she's a soul adventurer and soul guide. So welcome.
Wow, that's a nice introduction. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Tanya, for having me and for inviting me for another talk. We'll try to do it in English.
We said that in case we are having problems focusing on thoughts, so yeah, we decided that if we can't form any sentence that makes any sense, BOHDANA will start singing and I'll start dancing. So it might be it might be a different episode from all the others.
Okay, we have a backup plan. Yes, I have one very slight, tiny little correction, but you couldn't have known. My mother language, my mother tongue is actually Polish. You don't know that.
I did not know that. Is this exclusive again?
Again. I have Polish roots. Even though I was born in the Czech Republic, I belong to a Polish minority in the Silesian region. So I've studied Polish schools until high school, the third year of my high school studies. So I am bilingual by nature.
So you are multinational and multilingual. And there you go. International woman of mystery. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. So we were actually talking about your studies before we started recording. So this is a perfect segue.
It is.
So you studied in Polish. You live in Czech, so it's the Czech language, and then you went to study in the US, right?
Yes. I studied the last year of my high school in the US. I spent 1 year in Columbus, Ohio. So I was very lucky actually to get there, and that was a lifetime, an experience that changed my life. Not only because of the language that just stayed there, including the accent, but it changed me inside in a very profound way, because it was the year of 94, 95. Now you can do your math, how old I am now.
Everyone do your own math if you want to.
I'm not, yeah.
We are not helping you.
And for us in the Czech Republic or in Czech country, it was very shortly after the Velvet Revolution and after the socialism and communism went down or was brought down, and it was such a big difference between what I knew, how I was raised, what I was growing up in, from what I saw and experienced in the very free and open country as America is, or United States. It was big. It was really big.
that was like warping from one totally different world into another. We are not talking only about cultural shock, the cultural difference, but also the regime, as you said. We lived under communist regime. That's all we knew for generations.
Yes.
And so all of a sudden there is freedom, there is democracy, mature democracy. So yeah, how did you experience that?
It was a shock. It was a cultural shock. It was a personal shock. And it was eyes opening and heart opening and self-esteem opening, or waking me up, basically, because suddenly I had this very bodily living experience of how freedom tastes, what it looks like when you can have and speak your own opinion, when you know, there is no judgment on what your opinion is, when there is always an open space for discussion, when you can travel freely, when it's normal that families live far apart from each other. You know, when the kids go after high school to university, they usually move even to another country, to another state, and they have to fly in when for holidays or so. That's a completely different story than we experienced here in our little tiny European, very traditional country. Especially, you know, with my Polish roots, Poland and Polish people are very, very traditional, even more than Czechs.
Right, but sorry to stop you there, because some of our listeners may not know what it means, traditional, especially in the Polish or Central European sense.
Well, for me, you know, we have very deep connection to our roots, to the history of the country. I just got goosebumps.
Goosebumps.
Now. And for Poland and Polish people, it's also religious. I'm not a religious person per se in the regular way of, you know, Catholic religion, but it's just in the DNA of the nation that there is, how I sense it or feel it, there is a great respect to the roots, the culture, which goes very long way back in the years, and also to the beliefs and religion, and you know, also the family. I think is very the structure of family when we stay together for a long time. You know, we don't move usually. Polish and Czech people, what's more normal or usual is that we the families stay together or in a very close
Proximity, yes.
We don't move far away from our family when we marry or when we go to studies or when we, you know, pursue our career. It's not so usual as in the US.
And the multi-generational houses where several generations live are so common, or used to be very common.
It's changing, of course.
It's changing, yeah.
But from that, come to the US, where, you know, there were so many surprises for me and weird things. Sometimes I felt even embarrassed. You know, some things were embarrassing due to the cultural differences. Like, well, one thing that was strange to me was the family which I stayed with. I was lucky enough that they spent about 4 years in Europe. So they knew more about our mentality and you know, what we are like. That was good. But at the same time, they were still Americans. So they didn't know their neighbors. They didn't talk to their neighbors. And it's not because they don't like them. It's just, you know, not usual there, or wasn't at that time. We did talk to people in the church community. There was a very strong connection to this. So we traveled across the town 1 hour to another, to the northern part of it, to visit people that were new from and liked and had relationships with from the church community. But the neighbor next door, I didn't know anything about them. That was strange, because here in Czech, we do know people, around. We do know our neighbors. We even do great, barbecue parties. We spend time together. Some families, when they're neighbors, even spend holidays together. So that was different. And the embarrassing part, there were many of them. But one, for me, I was 17. I felt like, I'm out in the world, I want to experience the world. I want to meet men and young boys, I want to feel the love and everything.
Yes, it's the age.
It's the age. It's just the age,
It's nature.
And that's very personal. But the first embarrassing moment was, we had this prep camp for the students, for the exchange students. There were 150 students from all around the world coming to the US through the program I was involved in. And we spent 1 week in a prep camp where they were teaching us how to actually behave and live in American families. And there were questions like, or not questions, instructions like, you need to take a shower daily. I was like, why do you tell us this? Why do you need to even tell? I felt humiliated. Or deodorant. Use a deodorant. I was like, okay, this already got to the Czech Republic, I'm not that. But there were, I understood later, because there were some Korean students, and that was completely different story for them, these informations. So, okay. But so that was the prep camp, and I was like, all right, that's a beginning, that's interesting. And but then with the boys, love and experience. There was, of course, a boy in my school which I immediately liked and started flirting with. And I remember this sunny summer day in the beginning of the school year. We were standing in the yard during our lunch break or something like that. I was wearing shorts. And I think I suggested something like, let's go out or something. I was very bold, And he said to me, go home, shave your legs, and then talk to me again.
Oh my goodness.
That was a cultural difference. At that time in 1994 or 90s, in my country, in Czech Republic, it wasn't still so common and usual for women to shave anywhere. So I didn't shave. And in America, it was already a standard, and that was painful.
I can so empathize with this, because I had something different but similar in Switzerland, because I left in 1990, and I was about a similar age. And yes, it's all these discoveries, because you live in such a different setting and different dynamics and world behind the Iron Curtain, And then in the world out there, things are different. Even these tiny things you wouldn't think about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I actually experienced my stay in the US. These are tiny little bits of it. There was a lot more to it. It changed me, especially you know, how I perceived myself in terms of self-esteem, being me, speaking up, you know, speaking my mind, my opinion.
Because for those of you who have not experienced it, and thankfully there's loads of you, it is about censorship. If you live in sustained censorship around yourself, you have censorship inside yourself. I mean, we all have certain type of censorship in our everyday because of conditioning of society, cultural conditioning, family conditioning, and so on. But in a totalitarian regime like Czechoslovakia was at that time, you do have inner censor. You are living in some kind of fear, and you know you have to keep everything really close to your heart, and you cannot speak your mind. You are a number, and you better not be seen, because if you are seen, if you are too unique, if you are standing out, it's dangerous. It's dangerous for yourself, it's dangerous for your family. So that's that type of thing. That's really strong conditioning from basically your infant years that you have to overcome. So that's what you're saying, that was a big change.
Exactly. And also the way of learning. It's now when talking about it now with you, I realized that one of the great gifts that I got through that experience is my curiosity, and openness, and another way of thinking and learning, because the school system in former Czechoslovakia, in my country, you know that you've experienced it, was learning by heart all the data, all the hard information, and you have to know it by heart. Whenever we wake you up in the middle of the night, you have to know this, you know, and that's
recite it.
Yeah, you have to recite it, even whether it's you know, grammar or math or geography, whatever, you have to know it. But in America, when I started going to school, I was just, it took me a few weeks or even maybe months to just be able to relax into the way of learning there, and the way how the teachers were leading us in our education. It wasn't even teaching, it was leadership. And I was really, one of the big surprises was I had a subject called American Studies that was literature, history, and literature, history, and the third one, I don't know what it was. It was just a mix of combined 3 subjects. And we were learning about World Wars I and II. And my big surprise was when we got to a point where we discussed whether Hitler's ideas and the way he was and what he did was good or bad. And the teachers were asking us and inviting us into a discussion, into a conversation. Why was it okay? Why wasn't it okay? What was actually happening? And, you know, we were learning about, we had to do our research, you know, and with me, well, it triggered my trauma, my collective trauma from war, especially being Polish, all the concentration camps, etc. But that was a big surprise. I was like, wow, this is a completely different way of approaching anything in my life. Anything. Nothing is given. Nothing is just black or white.
Nothing is said. Yeah, it's like, it's not command and control. It is that. Think about it from different aspects. Open up.
And just take this little bit part.
Yeah.
You know, apply it on any, I have goosebumps.
Me too.
Apply it on any subject of your life, on any area, relationships, conversations, work, purpose, you know, anything. Nothing is given, nothing is said, nothing is black or white.
Yes, there is that wide area. That is the difference between the closing and the limitation of that tunnel or a box, and that opening up and looking at different layers, different aspects, and the world is much, much bigger.
Yeah. And it's, today we call it think out of the box. Yeah.
Yes.
Thinking box. Fine. Well, I got this gift just by spending 1 year in the US high school. And that was big. So thank you for making me realize this today, thanks to our podcast together.
Thank you so much for sharing it, because I think it's such a wonderful thing to talk about. And for me, it brought back my own similar experience as well. And it's good, yeah, it's good to look back and see it in retrospection.
Yes.
So
I just remembered one more memory, and we can leave.
go, no, don't go. Let it flow. Let it flow as it comes.
Well, when we learned about World War, the teachers knew that I was from Europe, from Central Europe. Then we discussed and we talked about my Polish roots. So they asked me, and it was part of an assignment within the subject, can you make a presentation on concentration camps and Holocaust? And that was difficult. That was hard for me because the collective trauma is really there. It's deeply in me. I'm aware of it. I was aware of it also then, or even then at that time. And I have visited, a concentration camp in Oswiecim. So it was experience I'll never forget. So I did make this presentation, and one day I stood up in front of the whole class, showing pictures and talking about it, from what I knew from my grandparents, what I knew from the school, how we learned it, what we learned about it. I was talking about my experience walking, visiting this concentration camp and seeing all the piles of human hair and teeth and everything. And it was, for me, and difficult and strong and powerful at the same time. And as I went through the presentation, I could see the students just staring at me, the American students. And I couldn't tell for 100% what I saw in their faces. I couldn't read it. That was difficult. And after I finished, one of them, I said, do you have any questions? Do you want to talk about anything? Are you interested in anything more? One of them stood up, and it was a guy, and he said, is this really true? I thought it was just a fiction from Schindler's List. I thought, this Holocaust did not happen. I thought it was just for a movie. I didn't know it was for real. And that was shocking for me, that they, thought it was just a fiction, and to them that it was real. And that made a very deep connection. And that's another lesson I learned from that, another gift for me, understanding and having this very deep experience of when I share myself, when I share my history, personal and collective, or history of nation or family, and my personal life path, it can have a great impact on anybody who is open and ready to listen. And that's what I've done ever since. That's what I do now with you. I have goosebumps again.
Yeah, I have goosebumps as well. Speaking out and speaking the truth saying, yeah, as it said.
What's more valuable that we have, each of us, than our own life experience? And if we are here to grow and just enrich everybody else or people we meet, so what is the better way to do it than by sharing our life path and experience and ourselves?
Wow. There is nothing I can add or subtract from that, because that is true, and that is very powerful. So now you know what Bodhana does and what SoulGuide means.
Yes, yes, leading you to your inner truth and deep connection with yourself so that you can actually then bring the gifts and give it to the world, or even just to one person in the world. And that's enough for a lifetime.
That's interesting, because I was thinking lately, I have heard a few opinions on the world is in a terrible turmoil and chaos, and there is so much bad out there, and we don't know how we are going to come out of it, and what can I do as a one person? You know, I cannot change the world politics or economics or whatever. I cannot change the crowds or the cultural burden and so on and so forth, the burden of the past. What can I do as a one person? So what would you say to that? I think you have already started.
Well, just what I said, live your life fully and share it. And there is no need to carry all the burden of the world. A burden of my own life is just, enough. So coping the best with my own life, my own challenges that life brings me, and then passing on my experience in the best way I can, and living up to the best of me, the best version of me, and to my highest potential is what I can do for the world. Because, my experience is once I don't know, get conscious enough to realize how far goes my responsibility, let's say, towards nature and environment.
Mhm.
And I try to do my best. Once I realize that I'm deeply connected and I'm part of this ecosystem, which I have influence on, and it influences me, we're interconnected, then I start living in a more ecological way.
Mhm.
I say it right now in English.
Yeah, yeah.
I am, let's say, conscious or aware of what my deeds have, and how it impacts the environment. Whether when I walk in the woods, I leave there a plastic bottle or not. I cannot do it in a certain point of my life, and my self-realization and the awareness of the interconnection of the ecosystem of me and my environment I live in. I just cannot leave a plastic bottle in a forest. I can't do it. So and then when I have kids, I pass on this experience by just being an example to them. Talking about kids, you lead by an example.
Example,
Or
exactly.
leader in a company, you lead by an example.
Yeah.
Or in your community, wherever. And that's raising your awareness and self-awareness, and then living up to the best version of you and your potential, and passing on what you learn on your way is what we can do, even for politics, because then there will be more and more, the generation of our children will have a totally different starting point, and they have it already, in terms of self-awareness, an openness for discussion, and the environmental questions and sustainability. That's a completely, when you look at the generations back in the time, you can tell it even from your point where you're at, anybody who's watching us, that there is a difference and there is hope for the world, our planet and humanity, because I believe, and I need to believe, that we're doing a progress in terms of realizing what's important for our lives and for the planet, for our children. And we do our best, you know, and I live in a country that has no sea. So thinking about how to save whales or turtles doesn't really, you know, unless I decide to travel to a country or do work in somewhere in the sea, it doesn't make sense to worry about whales and tortoises from the Czech Republic. Because here and now, I don't have whale and turtles, you know, around me.
You haven't been put in the settings where it is your, in some ways, what I'm hearing is tend to your garden and tend to your kitchen, clear the old burden and of past that we carry still from past, and just tend to what is in your scope. And that is plenty, because that sends the, you know, that sends the influence further and further along the web that interconnects us all, right?
Yeah, there is enough to do, okay, in our own garden and in our own life and country or city or a village. You know, there is enough to do even there. And that's where where the change starts, where it begins.
I know you are working with or helping people find their own self leadership. As you said, you know, think about what is your scope of influence, immediate influence, and start there. Become more aware about what you carry inside and how that impacts you and everything around you. But you also help leaders to lead, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So would you say more about that work? Because that is very impactful and important work. Well, both of it.
Well, that's you know, for hours and hours of talking.
I know. Maybe that will be serious.
Leadership per se is, actually last night I had a very interesting session online. I'm a part of a program called Trauma Informed Women in Leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that just, you know, called me that I need to be part of it. And I'm learning more about this. And there was an interesting thought last night when we were talking about leadership. And it was, and it's completely, you know, aligned with how I feel about leadership. That leadership is not something I do. Leadership is actually something that's already there in the world. It's a part of now I got lost in my thoughts, not about English, but because of, you know.
Yeah, because it comes so many ways. Leadership is there in the world. That's not what you do.
It's just, you know, I'm not, let's forget it.
Shall we sing?
No need to think yet. No, that's okay. But you know, it's not something I do. It's something that I come to, and I agree actually, and I look for the way how to be part of it. It's not about having power over somebody or something. It's about power with. And for me, it's also very closely connected to responsibility, which goes hand in hand with it, which, you know, you can think of your own definition of when I say the word responsibility, what it is for you. But for me, responsibility is the ability to respond.
Oh, that's nice.
Not about the duty that we have to, you know, do and fulfill. Or not only, it's just one way of looking at responsibility, which I think is more common in our country and nation, talking about Czech and Polish. That's our for me. But, thinking about responsibility as the ability to respond is a completely different way. So when we work with leaders in companies and businesses, but for me, a leader is also a mother raising 2 children, 1 child, or everybody who actually is on the path of leading themselves. That's all. We're all leaders.
We are all leaders, yes.
One way or another, you can find leadership in your life already. You don't have to do it. So when we work with leaders, that's what we do. We we change their paradigm of understanding leadership, and the deeply imprinted definitions of how we've actually perceived leadership so far in terms of masculine ways. Also, now talking as a woman, we have different qualities in leadership, and that's actually something we need to explore more. What's women's leadership? What is it actually? What qualities are present in women who lead? And how is it different from men that lead? And each person, each individual also, we have our own ways of leadership. But why I think it's important is because the impact and the ripple effect of working with businesses, companies, and leaders is much bigger than working with individuals on a personal level. I do that work too, and I love it. And it's necessary and very, the world needs it. But we've been actually, I feel it that way. We've been called to now bringing our work and wisdom to leaders and businesses. Because, for me, it's just the ripple effect, and the scale is much greater.
I was just thinking, the scale is greater, the reach is further, and it's a different layer of our world and being, yes.
And again, if the awareness within the business raises up, if it changes, it brings the responsibility of the company and the business as well. If the leaders change their way of perceiving things, and the awareness of the connection that's there for us within the team, families, communities, nations, countries, planet, it's just there. And if you change it, then the impact, or you start changing it on that level, it can just influence such more.
It reverberates everywhere, on all layers and levels.
So I'm actually excited about this. We've just, it's 2 days ago that we published on our website the basic offer for companies and businesses and leaders. It's a first version of it, which is not perfect, but it's good enough for now. And I'm really excited.
I am excited about it because I know we have spoken about it in our Czech podcast. We mentioned it as well. We had it as exclusive as well, one of the exclusives, right? And it excites me too, because that's another level and another direction of this work. And I'm hoping I'll get Bohdana back in the future to give an update on how all this is going.
We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. You were talking about the changing of individual paradigms. Now we were talking about changing, let's say, organizational structural paradigms. I know that you are co-leading with your team, something very special in Sahara that helps to change old paradigms. Would you like to introduce SoulAdventure?
SoulAdventure. Yes. Well, just by SoulAdventure is the name of our company, but also it's what we actually do. We invite people and groups and businesses and companies into the adventure of their own soul, and finding the strength and the truth, and bringing more authenticity and yourself and your gifts and your potential into your life, and what you do, how you live, how you relate to others, how you raise your kids. And part of what we do, and actually it's, let's say, the root from which everything else in SoulAdventure grew throughout the time, are soul quests in the Sahara desert. So we take groups of people to Sahara for 2 weeks for a soul quest. We walk on foot with a caravan, with camels and Bedouins, with backpacks, and from one, let's say, base camp to another. And yeah, we just slow down, not only physically, but also mentally. So that all the things that are there buried under the hum of the everyday lives can, be seen and heard and felt by everybody, by each member of the group. And we work with what comes. And we invite people to actually, we say, let's live these 2 weeks ourselves as if nobody was watching. And you can do, be, or say anything. You can express anything that's in you, and it's okay. So it's 2 weeks of experiencing that I'm okay just as I am, and whatever is there, it can be seen, it can be expressed, and it can be even accepted and not judged.
That's a difficult one to break from, because many of us, majority of us, I think, have these protective mechanisms, the armor around ourselves, to protect ourselves from pain, suffering, judgment, and so on and so forth. We just get that seed from the moment we are born and are told what we should be and shouldn't be, and should do and shouldn't do. Some have it stronger, some have it not so strong, but we all have it. And then on top of it is traumas, as you have already mentioned, epigenetics, generational traumas. So there is lots of layers. And how does Sahara, the environment, and this space help to break this down?
Well, I always say that the desert is one of the guides itself. It's part of our guiding team. The environment actually is very specific, because we get to a place where we're far away from what we're used to in our civilized country or world. We're far away from also our work, families, and roots, and the influence of culture, society, family, and the conditioning of it. Partially we bring it with us, inside us, but the influence that's environmental is not there. And also desert is usually perceived by people and deeply connected with death, with something that's dangerous and where one can die. And if you say yes, your inner yes, to a personal change, to shift, to get deeper connection with who you are and what's the purpose of your life and why you're actually here. You need to first let things go. You need to let some parts of yourself and the conditioning and the beliefs to die so that new things can come, and you can be reborn into your, let's say, upgraded self. So the environment actually brings all these bits of support of doing it. There, how do you say podněty in English? Impulses.
Impulses, yeah.
There are no impulses. We don't have signal, so we're not on our phones for 2 weeks.
All these hooks that are hooked into you without you realizing. It's like
just this tiny little bit, and think that we actually put our phones into Ziplocs and we bury it deep into our rucksacks, and we just take it out after 2 weeks at the airport or back at home. Some people even. That's something that you don't do here. Yes, people say I'm going on how do you call it, on a detox.
Retreats, yes, retreats and things like that. Yeah, online detox,
online
electronic
detox,
yeah.
Data detox. I'm going on.
Yeah.
I'm switching off my social media and I'm putting away my phone. But still, even if we do it for days or weeks here, in the civilized world, we still get interactions with people who have phones, with billboards, digital devices, with the sounds and hum of the civilization. So in the Sahara Desert, it's all gone. It's not there. There is just the wilderness and the wild part of ourselves, which we can actually explore and experience and start getting to know. And once you get to know your wild part, you don't want to just bury it back, you just want to bring it to your life and start finding ways how to live it, even in the civilized environment, let's say.
Back with all the input and all that you are bombarded with, the data, the all the information and demands. Yeah. You are there though with experienced guys, because you all have gone through it and several times, to give the container of safety where people can actually do this, because the whole process, you have experienced it, you have lived it, and you live it still because you brought it from Sahara with you to your daily life. So you are helping people to let go of their old selves, of their old paradigms, old what's the IDs, and to bring out the new one. How is it when they come back? Because again, we have already kind of talked about it last time, that it is somewhat difficult. You change. So much changes within you on this soul quest, on this vision quest. You find new things. You have that fledgling new identity that is really you, the true you, the new you. And then you have to bring it to all this storm. The old environment, the old conditioning, the old impulses, so how do you help with this transition?
Yes, it's a very important part of our work, the integration of whatever you come across during your stay in the Sahara Desert, and what you find out about yourself and all the experiences, to bring it back into, yes, your original life, let's say. It's a challenge usually. We work with it the last few days of the stay in the desert quite profoundly, and we do give recommendations of how to do it, how to, work with, how to, let's say, step by step, bring the new to the old one, so that it calibrates and recalibrates, and not only me, myself, and my paradigms, but also, my family members, at work, what I do, and the community. And it feels strange at first. When you come back, you feel like an alien on a different planet, or that was my own personal experience after my first soul quest. I felt I'm an alien here, I'm weird. We talked about the word.
Yeah, weird.
And it feels strange because people usually are very slowed down and sensitive, and not only emotionally, but also physically, because the sand, it just wakes up the skin. So you get very sensitive also to the physical, the clothes, and what you wash your clothes in. Some people need to change what they buy for washing their clothes, because they cannot bear anymore any chemicals even in their clothes. So these are the changes, and we do give, the basic steps, what can happen, how you can feel, and what you need to be aware of, and how to do it slowly. So there's a preparation work for coming back to the civilized world, the last few days of our stay. And then afterwards, we do offer support. If people or some of the members of the group feel like, hey, I need to continue, have some support from you over the time, because it's really hard for me, it's difficult. There is a possibility of working individually. We do have guides, including me, that, we just make a deal about an ongoing personal support. And we help people to integrate what they find in the desert into their lives. And the important part and information about Sahara desert and soul quests there, and vision quests generally, how I perceive them, is that it's just a starting point. It's opening the door. And it's not that when you come back from Sahara or any other quest you go to, that it's done. It's not done.
That's the beginning.
It's the beginning. It's the beginning, because you learn, you see things, you start understanding yourself more, you have a deeper connection with your inner truth, with yourself, with your soul, with, whatever is and whoever is you. And it's just the beginning then to start finding the ways how to live it in your everyday life. When you need to wake up in the morning and get the kids ready for the school. How do you, stay connected and being and be you and yourself and speak the truth when the things get difficult with your partner? How do you do it? And it's practice. It's something, it's a skill that needs time and space to get practice. It's like riding a bicycle, when you learn riding a bicycle, it takes some time, and you fall several times, but every time you just get back up and get on the bike and start, and riding again, until you learn it and you ride a bike automatically, or you learn how to drive a car. It's the same, it's a skill. So speaking your truth and being connected to yourself, and maintaining or just keeping this connection alive is a skill then that needs time and needs failures on the way, so that you get up back and say, okay, I messed up this time, I didn't do it the way I know I can, but hey, I still feel myself, I still know what my truth is. This time I didn't say it, you know, or I didn't I wanted to do, but okay, I learned from this experience. I fell from the bike,
Many
back on
times.
the bike and dried off, you know.
I like the Japanese saying, 7 times you fall, 8 times you get up again. And Bodhana, there is this misconception sometimes when you practice and practice and you get to the black belt level that you have got it all and now you are, now you can't fall off and off the bike. So how is it for someone so experienced? Would you say to everyone, no, yeah, I agree. You once you get the black belt, that's it. You're safe. No mistakes, no falling off the bike. Or how does a black belt fall off the bike?
It's one big lie.
One big fat lie.
Well, what I get, what do you want me to say? It's never, and as long as I'm alive, I'm going to experience lessons in my life and I'm going to be experiencing falling off the bike all the time, because I believe how I see life and life experience, it's through falling and rising up again. That's why what we are here for. That's how we learn, and that's how we grow, and that's what we get the life for. And whenever I find myself or I catch myself thinking, okay, this is done, I'm done here, this is over, I'm over it, it's already, I've got it all, set. How do you say it in English? I've got it all just
sorted out.
Sorted out, thank you. This is the point when today I already get suspicious to myself. It's like, careful,
It's a sign.
careful. It's like, careful, because you don't want to get a hard lesson in this. So I think it comes with, humbleness. To be humble and just the life is bigger than me. The wisdom that's here is bigger than me. So I can never know for sure that I'm done.
And that's a good thing, right? That's the adventure. That's the adventure part in things, right?
That's the adventure part of our life and of our souls, soul adventure. But I can relate to people who now feel, hey, this is not comfortable. I don't want to hear that. I want to believe the fairy tale about happily ever after. Well, sorry guys, this doesn't happen in our lives. They've lied to us in the fairy tale. And I was so, now I'll use this word, I was so pissed off when I realized somewhere on my life path that it was a lie. All the fairy tales about, they got married and they lived happily ever after. That's not true, because there are no fairy tales about Snow White and the life after. What happened to her and her prince and their kids, and what happened to their relationship and everything, how did they live ever after? Well, happily, that's just half of the truth.
That is a half of the, well, for me, happily after became at some point that I can fall off the bike and not be so panicked or so dramatic about it, and that I know how to fall, how it feels falling off the bike, and I can deal with it, and I know that it's a lesson, and it takes me a bit further.
Oh yes, yeah. The falls will keep happening until we're dead. It will keep happening.
You just learn how to deal with them. You just learn how to fall like a stunt woman.
And the difference is that's what you said, and you said it. I don't panic. I don't go into a downward spiral about questioning my self-esteem or my value or how I perceive my self-value. I know how to deal with it when I fall down, you know. I have tools, I have experience I can build on. I know it will someday be over when I'm feeling down. You know, I know how to get through it. I know how to find resources to go through it. I am able to ask for help. There are many, many things that will change. That's the difference. But the falling part will keep happening. For goodness sake, just accept it.
Just accept it. Yes, and accepting it just relieves so much pressure and internal conflict. But as you said, you have been through the initiation of the soul quest or vision quest. It showed you the direction, and you started to explore yourself, as you said, opening yourself up and digging really deep and finding your true resources. And now on this path, you are basically applying them to ever-changing situations. So that's the greatest treasure of the soul adventure and the life quest, right? Like, I know there are almost like endless resources, and there are infinite ways, like almost infinite ways of applying them to different contexts and situations. And that's the real treasure, the opening up, the adaptability, the resiliency. And then you see the beauty of it all in its real context, not in the fairy tale living happily ever after and everything is like rainbows and unicorns, but nothing against unicorns. So
Puppies and rainbows and unicorns. Yeah.
yes, yes. No, I don't have anything against unicorns, of course, but you know, as an escape, it has to be rightly applied in the right context. But you you have opened up the Soul Quest adventures to English speaking people, right? It's international now. It's not just for Czech people.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no.
Okay.
We did open and offer a soul quest for English speaking people. It didn't fill
Mhm.
fill out. So we didn't get the group together, so we didn't actually then do this quest, and instead we took a Czech group to the Sahara Desert. But so officially on our website, one cannot find any offer for a concrete date and soul quest. But at the same time, there are already 3 soul guides in our company speaking English and ready to bring also English groups into Sahara Desert. So whenever, or if you're watching us and you feel like, hey, this is an adventure I'd like to be part of, just, you know, get in touch. And we can either talk about, okay, let's find 3, 4, 5 more people and we'll take an English speaking group to the desert for your soul quest. Or there is always an alternative of an individual way of going through a soul quest in a little bit different way, and a different setup, not in the Sahara Desert, but we can always work also in English with people, and there are 3 of us already ready to do it and excited.
And they are amazing at it, as you can see. And if anyone is interested, I am I want to go on this soul adventure. Sahara calls to me, and I am happy to do it either in English or in Czech. So if there are more of you takers, you know, just get in touch with me of Bohdana, and we can plot and plan and make the magic happen.
Wow. So let's say if anybody gets in touch, I'll send you, Tanya, a page for the website where there is an English description of what we actually offered a year ago or so.
Fantastic.
And if people, if there is a group with you, then spring 2024, can be
Wow.
the time.
Guys, think about it. Think about it. There is, if you want to see more in visual as well, there is a documentary, right? Because you showed a documentary.
Yes, yes. On our website, SoulAdventure.cz, is a link to a film. We did make a documentary about Sahara and soul quests, and it has English subtitles, so you can turn on subtitles, English or German, if you are, you know, more comfortable with German. And yeah, feel free to watch it.
Watch it. It's amazing. It gives you more insight with together with the visual and the sounds as well. You will get even deeper into what it is about, and you have got explanation here and her own experience. Bohdana is there. You will see her. You will see her going through it. It's raw. It's raw and real.
It is. It's very raw. Yeah. Just as soul quests are, and work with us is, you know, I don't promise unicorns and rainbows. I promise the truth that can be painful, no, you know, difficult to see, but also exciting and beautiful. It's all in there.
It's all in there in life. Right. So is there anything that still wants to be spoken here? Is there any message, or shall we just close the interview down and see where it leads afterwards?
Well, one thing, you know, you all enjoy your lives as much as I enjoyed this podcast, then, you know, we still have hope. So live your lives fully. And if our life paths ever cross themselves, I'll be happy to meet you and guide you on your way, some part of your life. Love you all.
Live your life, love you all, and see you next time.